So I saw another person came through the room. So good morning, everyone, again. So we have stopped our last study where it is highlighted. I'll take it from there. Just to remind you all, we're talking about the pessimistic, diabolical, or demoniac theory. Consequently, to many people, it is not very flattering or consoling doctrine. It would be very difficult to convince a mother that a dear child whom has lost and who, after death, came to provide her with proof of its affection and identity was actually a friend instead. Something came to my mind here. If, following the subject we're studying from last week, if we assume that every communication received from beyond, it is a diabolical communication, how do you feel about having someone you loved, you are able to recognize because of the information received, if this loved one send you a message? Is that also diabolical? Someone that have lived by love, charity, good morale, good actions, the whole life. As soon as this person passed away and decide to send you a communication, does he or she become evil? So there are kind of questions that when we discuss with people that believe what is about this topic, they have no answer. Because despite our beliefs, we love who we love, right? And we know what they did, what they were. And if you had something from the other side, means that everyone we love becomes diabolical. So I don't like to have conversations with people that have different opinion to a point that are not prepared to listen or even to think about it. But sometimes we are caught in a situation where we have no way not to respond. And then I make questions like that to make them think. And quite often they have no way to respond. It is true that among spiritists, among spirits, there are those who are quite evil and who deserve no more than be called demons. By the way, if an incarnated spirit, a human being, are evil here, they won't be saint beyond the grave. They will be exactly what they are. So there's no difference between being incarnated or discarnated. It does not change who we are, right? And for a very simple reason, there are humans who are quite evil and death brings them no immediate improvement. The issue is to know whether it is only they who can communicate with us. I will highlight that here because this is something that also makes us think. Why only evil spirits can communicate with us? Does it make any sense? Do they have any particular right? Do they know how to master the comms? Christine, you're lucky because I saw your hand, you're raising your hand, but I won't see every time. So please open the mic and talk to us.
Okay. Where you've got know whether it is only that they who can communicate with us, if they were demonic or evil or not of good consciousness when they communicated with us as an incarnate, then, and it says that when they've disincarnated, they don't necessarily see an immediate improvement, then it stands to reason that potentially they could be a disincarnated spirit that wants to cause trouble. And so when they communicate with us, it's not always with good intention.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But we cannot create a rule. It's case by case. Let's think about something here. Let's talk about energy. Energy can be used positively or negatively. One invention can be used to help people or to perpetrate crimes, for example. The very same idea. The very same person acquainted to a kind of knowledge can do harm or can do good. We as a spirit, when we die, we do not change just because we left our physical body, because our spirit is exactly the same, remains the same. If I'm a troublemaker here, I'll be a troublemaker over there. If I'm kind of person that likes a lot of jokes, chances are that I will do the same over there. If I'm a very serious person here, I will be a very serious person over there too. So we do not change. It is our responsibility to evaluate human beings. And spirits are also human beings, discarnated human beings. The same way we protect ourselves, analyzing who we invited to our place, to our homes, we also should be very careful to whom we will invite from the spiritual world to our home, to our lives. Some of them will pretend to be what they are not. Likewise, our neighbors can pretend to be something they are not. So there's no difference. It's up to each one of us to study, to be able to identify better each individual, each spirit, because there's no difference. There's definitely no difference. How are you?
Hi, Guilherme. Good morning, everyone. Guilherme, what came into my mind is that, some of the Christian religions, they believe that, when we die, we sleep until Judgment Day. So if we, when returning to spirit, we sleep until Judgment Day hasn't come yet. So those who are awakened on the other side are God and the devil. God talks to special people, those who are prominent in religion or wherever, who have a special role in religion. So the one who is left to talk to general people in general is the devil. I think it's just actually to keep that idea of, sleeping in the spiritual world, awaiting judgment and so on, that some people put that, the only one who would be awakened to talk to us is the devil. I don't know if it makes much sense, but
you mentioned something that made me think about the way we are raised. The way we are raised makes us believe, or at least have a great impact in our beliefs. And I don't remember how many times we had the spirits in our mediumship meetings that were exactly what you just described. They were taken to the meeting, they were awakened in the meeting, they could not accept nor understand. Most of them, the first time they came, they could not accept nor understand anything we said, because they were expecting to wake up in heaven or in hell. And that never happened. And sometimes, some of them, when they realize the reality, they cry a lot and they are furious. Why they lied to me? Why they lied to me? I only have to say that the pastor or the priest or whatever just told with the best intentions what he knew. There was nothing intentional to make anything. It was just basically what he believed he passed to some other people. But now the person is having access to a different reality, and he will be able to come up to a decision by himself of what is true, what is not. Imagine if we are expecting only to see angels, and we know that's not the reality. The spiritual world is exactly like here. If you go to a bad neighborhood, you see things you don't want to see. If you go to a good neighborhood, you feel more safe. And also, we need to think, or at least to get the idea that beyond the grave has so many similarities with what we are used to here. And that will help us the day we have to move on. To those who believe so, we would propose the following questions. Are there both good and evil spirits? Very good question, by the way. Is God more powerful than evil spirits or demons, if you prefer? Affirming that only evil spirits communicate is the same as saying that good spirits cannot. If such is the case, then it either happens by God's will or against it. If it is against it, God's will, then evil spirits are more powerful than God. If it is by God's will, then why in all the divine goodness wouldn't God allow good spirits to communicate in order to offset the influence of the others? Another question. What proof can you give of the impossibility of good spirits to communicate? Let me stop here, otherwise I'll get lost. I'll lose my thoughts. And there is one particular creed that truly believe that the Saint Spirit can communicate in the reunion. Only the Saint Spirit. When it's something positive, it's the Saint Spirit. When it's something totally negative, it's the devil. So, based on that, there's only two possibilities in the spiritual world. God or devil. Anything else does not exist, does not have means to communicate, does not have any possibility to interact with us. But that's what they are happy with. So be it. But when we start to have contact with more information, also with the practice, we know that's not possible. We have a tremendous variety of good spirits and spirits that are not so good. They also communicate. The mechanism of the communication per se is exactly the same. There's no difference. Mediums may think and give their own opinion. Do you feel that's different when you get a higher spirit and a lower spirit to communicate? Do you feel that the mechanism is different? I know the answer. The mechanism is exactly the same. The energy during the communication is a whole different thing. But the mechanism is pretty much the same.
Yeah, it's Christine again.
Hi, Christine.
Yeah, wouldn't that be then what it comes down to as free will? Whether we take or pay attention to the communication that's happening and act on that communication, or just ignore it? so what I'm saying is, if we hear that human incarnates have free will, then they've got the will to decide, or should. But not everybody has the understanding to know whether they're being coerced or lied to or influenced to do something that would be out of character or the wrong thing, versus God's will, which would be to do the right thing and not disobey his commandments.
I think
Am I on the right path?
I think we have a lot of things in the same question. Let me answer what I think I can. To start with, you hear a lot of people saying that mediums are able to allow or not allow a communication to happen. This is partially right. In some events, the medium does not have the strength to stop a communication to happen, especially on the beginning. But as we are getting more familiar with the mechanism, we are getting more used to the job, if I can call it that, we know better how to control things. Regardless, very experienced mediums, sometimes they cannot stop a communication to happen either. But that's less frequent. Free will is something that we all have. We can use our free will to allow a communication to happen or not. We have a free will to accept that we are mediums or we are not. We have the free will to help those spirits that need help. I don't believe that we have a rule that defines that only a type of spirits will be able to communicate, because the practice shows us something different. So the mechanisms, existing mechanisms we have, are there to be used to help people. And despite that some people truly believe that mediumship meetings should take place only to have instructions from good spirits, I believe mediumship meetings are there to help spirits that are suffering. From time to time, yes, let's get a nice communication, but that should not be the target of this meeting. We try to understand these spirits accordingly to what we believe, according to what we've been told when we were kids. But I would suggest everyone to keep the mind open to understand what Kardec is telling us, because until today, I could not find any better and safe reference in the Spiritism than Kardec. As far as I know, he was the only one who compiled such information to all of us. And having that in mind, as we move along, few things that we are bringing from different creeds may start to have different weights, and our perception may change. But as ever, every change has to be gradually, otherwise we feel uncomfortable with. As we move, we understand, we practice, and we are more comfortable with the knowledge we are acquiring. I'm not sure if I answer your question, Christine, but that's what came to my mind. Did I answer your question?
No. Yeah, no, I'm happy with that.
Good. So let's move on to the question, to the item number 5. That's the question that Kardec would suggest, right? When we confront you with the wisdom displayed by some of the communications, you respond that the devil uses every sort of mask in order to better seduce us. we recognize the fact that there are hypocritical spirits who code their language with a varnish and wisdom, but would you hold that ignorance and mimic true wisdom, and that an evil nature can imitate virtue without revealing the fraud? That's very tricky. In the reality, when we are exposed to such spirits, they are very clever. Some of them way better than we are. And some of them, they are very fluent with the Christianism thoughts. They know the passage before than we do. They know better than we do. They know how to say, what to say, when to say. But there is one thing that cannot withstand forever, is the truth. When we ask those spirits to make a prayer, when we ask them to do some good with us, for example, then things start to fall, because they can pretend up to a limit. It's like us, we can pretend to be something we are not, up to a limit. We can pretend to be something we are not for years, but one day we fall. So spirits are no different. If only the devil can communicate and sense he is the enemy of both God and humans, then why do spirits recommend praying to God, submitting to the divine will, enduring the tribulations of life without complaining, not pursuing honor or wealth, and practicing charity and all the maxims of the Christ? In a word, doing everything that is necessary to destroy the devil's empire. If it is the devil who offers all those counsels, we must agree that no matter how cunning he may be, he would have to be quite incompetent to supply ammunition against himself. I think that's pretty clear, isn't it? It's just a matter of us exercising the right to think, to analyze everything. This is part of what we should do in every single situation. If spirits communicate, it is because God allows it. Since both God and evil communications are received, isn't it more logical to think that God allows the evil ones to test us and the others to offer us wise counsel? Yeah, isn't it? What would you think of a father who left his children at the mercy of pernicious examples on counsel, who withdrew from them, who prohibited them from seeking out individuals who could turn them from evil? Should we believe that God, who is goodness par excellence, would do what good father or any other person would do? It's also logic, isn't it? The Church affirms the authenticity of certain manifestations of the Virgin and other saints in the form of apparitions, visions, oral communications, etc. Doesn't this belief contradict the doctrine that only demons communicate? This one in particular is very common, especially in my home country, because there's a lot of Catholic people there. And how to answer that question? How to explain that, you know? On the end of the day, people believe in what they want to believe. People feel comfortable with what they like. If that make them better persons, so be it. There's nothing wrong with that. But in the Spiritism, we moved a little bit away from that, and we have other line of thought, and we experiment different situations that does not allow us to believe in that anymore. We believe that some persons have professed this theory in good faith, but we also believe that many have done so for the sole purpose of avoiding being concerned with such a matters because of the evil communications which everyone is subject to receiving. By starting that only the devil manifests, they wish to scare people as they would a child. Don't touch that, you get burned. Perhaps the intention is praiseworthy, but it does not meet its objective, since prohibiting something only serves to arouse one's curiosity, and fear the devil only stops a few people. In fact, most of them would actually like to see him, if for no other reasons than to see what he looks like, and they would be amazed to find out that he's not ugly as they had thought he would be. Let me stop here and thinking about mediumship. I think even today, we have a lot of people within the Spiritism trying not to give the right incentive to people to learn and to practice mediumship. Why is that? Perhaps the same line of thought as explained here. Don't touch that because you get burned. Don't study mediumship. This is just for a small group. Don't participate in mediumship meetings because, you don't know the results of it. Can be serious, cannot be serious. I think knowledge exists to be spread between all of us. If the knowledge is there, how to make some safe, how to practice something with good guidelines, why not? Why not? Well, but we don't need that. Well, that's not time for it. You need to study another 10 years to be able to do it. So be it. If you want to believe that's the right way, so be it. But I truly believe that knowledge is available to everyone and must be used by everyone. Might be there are further motive behind this theory that communications derive exclusively from the devil himself. There are persons who regard all who do not think as they do to be an error. This is very true, isn't it? We believe we have the power to define what is true, what is not. If you think in a different way than I do, you are wrong. But how many times we changed the way we think? Does it mean that we were wrong before? What about the amount of people I told wrong things because that was what I thought was right at that time? Where is my responsibility? Or I have no responsibility at all? On the end of the day, we should have our own perceptions about any subject, but we should always keep an open mind to evaluate different possibilities, because those different possibilities may help us to rethink what we think we know. Isn't it possible that those who hold that spirits communication are the work of demons are afraid that spirits may not agree with them, especially on issues concerning this world rather than those concerning the other? Maybe. Since they cannot deny facts, they try to present them in a frightening a manner as possible. This method, however, does not produce any better results than any of the others, and where fears of ridiculous is powerless, it is best to allow things to run their course. A Muslim who heard a spirit speak against certain laws of the Quran would surely believe it was an evil spirit. The same would apply to a Jew concerning certain practice of the law of Moses. As for Catholics, we heard one of them state that the communications spirits was the devil because he taught differently concerns the temporal power, even though this spirit only preached charity, tolerance, love for one's neighbors, and abnegation of worldly affairs, all in harmony with the maxim proclaimed by Christ. Let's be honest here. We only believe what we want to believe, right? And what we believe is what we think is right. Even if we do not have enough information to support what we believe, because this is what I believe, this is the right thing. This is human. This is human. Even among the Spiritists, people have different perceptions. That's why I always refrain to Kardec. We should refrain to Kardec. Hi, Munir.
Hi, Guilherme. I also think that, you know, to be in the position to say what people should believe or not is you know, gives you power. And power is also at the center of these situations, because you tell people what they believe, what they don't, and don't pay attention to outsiders. Whatever happens outside the church or whatever religion, you know, it's the work of the devil. But if it happens inside, it's the work of God. And people entitle themselves as emissary of God. You know, I'm here, I represent God, so whatever I say you should follow, don't question it, and don't believe in anything else. So they prevent people from reasoning, from thinking, and accepting information from other sources than just me. And in this scenario, I can control people, large masses.
Munir, power, money, influence, all those things we need to be very careful in our lives. That's why every time someone asks me to participate with something even related to the Spiritism that has some financial aspect, sorry, I don't want to. I don't want to. And up to today, Spiritism is money going out of my pocket for many reasons, not the other way around. Has to be like that. And when I see, not blaming anyone, not judging anyone, but when I see money related to things like that, I prefer to find a different path, a path that I feel more comfortable at least. And there is something else as well, our responsibility. Regardless what I think is right, I am responsible to promote the idea. I am responsible to spread the information, the idea. So it's better be sure about what we're talking about. It's better study constantly the subject we like to talk, the subject we are defending. Because at least if I realize that what I'm saying or what I said was not 100% right, I still have time going back and trying to minimize what I was preaching before. If I like to preach something and I'm not 100% about what I'm preaching, but I heard someone saying, and I believe it's true, and then it becomes true, that's very dangerous, because we are responsible for the information we share. We are responsible for the thoughts we change. We are responsible for the actions that are results of what we are preaching. Oh, but I haven't told this person to do this. Yeah, but you were the seed. You were the seed that this person was missing to do something. Like I was talking to my daughter the other day. In France, in Europe as a whole, I said our France because she is in France, but in Europe as a whole, even better. More civilized countries, first world, the practice of abortion is very common. Very common. And even the professionals, the way they ask questions they are responsible as well. Let's say I'm a doctor. A young lady came to me. I think I'm pregnant. Okay. What do you want to do? You want to commit an abortion? Is this a question I should do? Because perhaps that young lady was not thinking about that at all. And after my question, she may decide to do. It's not because of what I believe. If I'm a doctor and I believe that's the right thing or it's not the right thing, I must be neutral. Give the opportunity to the person to make their own decision. With one question, in the wrong moment, in the wrong time, I may decide, I may have conducted a different end of the history. And then when we do that, a lot of people think there's no consequences. But we that participate in mediumship meetings, we know quite well that a child, when is prohibited to come to the world after an abortion, may well be our enemy for a very long time. That's what we call obsessive process. And that not only for the mother or the father, sometimes for the professionals too. So we need to be very careful with what we believe is true and what comes out from our mouth, because we are responsible for everything we say, believe or not, but we are. Since spirits are but human souls and are such not perfect, it stands to reason that there are equally imperfect spirits whose character is reflected in their communication. It is undeniable that there are evil, cunning, and profoundly hypocritical spirits whom we must guard ourselves against. However, simply because there are perverse individuals in this world, would that be any reason for us to run from societal life? Well, we cannot escape from that, right? In life, we will be crossing people, all sort of people, but we can minimize that. Without choices, we can minimize the type of encounters we will have in our life. If I like to drink every single day in a pub or whatever, I know what kind of spirits I'm finding. If I like to go to brothels, I know what kind of spirits I will find over there. If I like to complain, gamble, I'm just giving some examples. If we will find the sort of spirits that we are comfortable with, depending on our choices. Don't tell me that you go for a place, you like to be there, and you are different. No, I'm there to help. I heard that before. Well, very rare occasions that could be true. Most of the time, we feel happy with that kind of place. And depending on where we are, the spirits in that place are exactly what we like, what we invite to our day-to-day communications. God has given us reason and discernment for judging both spirits and humans. The best way to avoid the possible inconveniences that Spiritist practice may present is not to prohibit them, but rather to clarify them. So we have two things very important here. If you hear anyone prohibiting communication with spirits, what comes to your mind? Moses? Because you can only prohibit something if it does exist. And if you want to have a control of it. No, we can only do this. Well, why? At least that's what you need to do. Why? Explain me why. And it doesn't matter what kind of answer you have, it's our obligation to study, to research, to evaluate if that answer is very positive or is incomplete. We
Gilles, it's
have that.
Christine.
Hiya.
Sorry, it's Christine again. Just on that statement, the best way to avoid the possible inconveniences that Spiritist practice may present is not to prohibit them, but rather to clarify them. If we're saying that, there's disincarnated and incarnate spirits, then to say that, I agree with that statement, but it's to me, it's broad, because it needs to be broader to say, well, when you communicate with another person, you're actually communicating with the spirit. When we talk about spiritism, so we need to clarify if we don't understand what another person or another spirit is saying to us, and a incarnate spirit is saying to us, we question to clarify what they're saying, or we try and get them to put what they're trying to advise us in another way that we can understand. So, it's I think, not to prohibit, but rather to clarify them. Yeah, that to me is a very important statement, because it's really about speaking with all spirits, which is incarnate, disincarnated spirits. We're all spirits.
Mm-hmm. I agree what you said, but I would like to elaborate a bit more. Spiritism. Go on here before I say anything. Go.
Oh, thanks, Guilherme. Now, what came into my mind is actually the use of mobile phone. There's a new scam every week. And what do? Do we leave aside our mobile phone? Do we prohibit people using their mobile phone? No, we are constantly releasing videos to show how the scams have moved, have evolved, for people to know exactly how the criminals work. And then we get prepared for the kind of scam that they are doing. So I think it's the same. It has to be clarified. It has to be informed to people in all manners and ways, what can do, what can happen, and so on, and not just prohibit. We may prohibit if we are talking about kids who don't know exactly how to look after themselves in a situation like that, in a scam, a phone call or WhatsApp message or whatever. And in that case, and that's why I see that Moses imposed a kind of prohibition to use of mediumship, because people didn't know exactly how to use it and to tell evil spirits from good spirits, what was good, what was not. And then in the middle of that confusion, he said, well, let's stop it. Not, that it was evil. It's just that people had no condition at that moment to understand it fully. But nowadays, I don't know a single person who said, I was a victim of a scam, I'll not use my mobile phone anymore. No, on the contrary, the person gets very alert and then tries to find all sorts of scams that, the person may fall prey of, and then avoid that.
Yeah. You brought a very nice example. Right, very nice example. And the lesson from that is we may make mistakes, but we learn with mistakes as well. I may be caught in a scam before, but I'll use that as an opportunity not to have the same again. We should not be afraid to try. You should not be afraid to experiment things. Because those who succeeded, they failed many times before they succeed. And thanks to them, we have electricity, we have lights at home, we have things like that. But I would like to mention something as well, Munir, is that Spiritism does not prohibit anything at all. If you see any Spiritist prohibiting something, is because he never understood well what is the Spiritism. So Spiritism does not prohibit anything. Spiritism will give you counsel, suggestions of a best way to handle situations. That is our duty, but not to prohibit anything. When he's talking about clarify here, something came to my mind that was, we can understand that to the incarnated that wants to practice mediumship, that wants to learn mediumship, also to the spirits. So we were not born prepared to sit and do a few activities. So what are you going to do? We're going to learn. We're going to get acquainted to the situation. We're going to get used to it before we can feel comfortable with. And that's very natural. Talking about incarnated spirits. In regards to the discarnated spirits, in the mediumship meetings, they come sometimes very complicated spirits, sometimes nice spirits, sometimes very nasty spirits. And what is our obligation? To clarify them, to give them a different perspective, a different opinion about what they think is right. We cannot force them to do anything. It's impossible to force them to do anything. But we can give them food for thought. And that's what that's our goal. We give them food for thought. Sometimes we can even show them something different, and then they can make their own decision. But when I see clarify them, is clarify ourselves. Because what we know today, hopefully will be different in 5 years' time, because we will have the opportunity to study more during these 5 years, and our perception, our understanding may evolve. What we know today is incomplete. Will always be incomplete because we will always have access to more information, to more experience, to new developments, to new events. So I would understand that Spiritism is a way of life, a philosophy showing us the way of life to clarify ourselves all the time. An imaginary fear can only make momentary impression, and it will not affect everybody. While, on the other hand, a clearly demonstrated reality is indeed comprehensible to all. So, I used to say quite often, don't believe in what I am saying. I'm just sharing what I know. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything, because you cannot convince anyone that does not want to be convinced. But I would rather encourage everyone to try. Because when he's saying here, demonstrated reality, how can you demonstrate a reality? As far as I know, there's only one way to do it. It's trying, to exposing ourselves to something. And then after we have that experience, we can come up with our own choices, our own decisions. When someone prohibits you not to do this, you may not try. If you don't try, you don't know. I'm not trying to say to everyone to try everything. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm trying to say that with a reliable source of information, that's Kardec, with good guidance, that is also Kardec, and with the practice, with experiences, we can come to our own conclusion. We don't have to accept what a person is telling us. Not at all. We may take that on board to help us to come to our own conclusions. But we all have the freedom and the right to read, to study, to practice Spiritism as a whole.
Hi, Guilherme. Can I just add a little bit of a comment, kind of a question? When you were saying, came to my mind that using Kardec knowledge to learn new things is awesome. But even when we are trying to experiment something new, obviously with all the good intentions, even that situation, it could be Kardec an example, because looking the way that he made the things that he made in terms of methodology, could we look after look Kardec as an example on how to experiment things as well?
You will have a massive yes as an answer. Every experiment I did so far was using Kardec as a reference, as a basis. You will not see Kardec telling you not to. He may advise you to be careful with some situations, but he will never tell you not to do something. And let's think a hypothetical situation here that I decide to open a mediumship meeting. I'm using mediumship because this is the topic of our study, right? I decide to open a mediumship meeting, and me, my friend, and another 2 colleagues, and we never bother to study. First mistake. We never bother to follow the guidance that Kardec clearly gave us through the Medium's book. Another mistake. I never follow the Spiritism proceedings. Do good, be careful, mind your surroundings, have a good thoughts, good choices. I never paid attention to that. Another mistake. So there's a lot of things we can think or be prepared before we start such endeavor. But if we do the right thing, the chances of succeed is very good. If something came to my mind, actually it's coming to my mind for a few minutes already. We can buy things on the internet. We can buy a Ouija on the internet. Do you know what a Ouija is? It's a board with letters, and you moving from A to B, and then you start to make some words. There's also another game that is sold to kids as well. You can buy that, a more professional one if you like, and there's some sold for kids. I know because I bought a couple of years ago. And there's also another game you can buy on the internet, or at least could be bought at the time when I was looking, is that to teach kids how to play with a glass of water to have answers from the spirit, and somebody decide to make a game of it, to make money of it. If we decide to do something like that for fun, what you are attracting? Serious spirits? You may not attract bad spirits, but definitely you will not attract good spirits. So when I'm trying to give the incentive to people to start things, is to start things seriously, in a decent manner, in a controlled environment. And then if you do things like that, yes, the chances of succeed are high. If you want to do something for fun, my recommendation is do not start, because the repercussions could be negative for you, for your home. So it's better not to do it. But I like to give always support and incentive to people that are trying to do the right thing in the Spiritism. A lot of people may say, well, no, this is not to be spread everywhere. And I'll ask why. Why? I don't remember Kardec saying anything not to do it. So this is, if it's not Kardec, it's not a reliable spirit telling me not to do, Who is telling me not to do? You? Why? Where you got that from? Because you had a bad experience? A bad experience doesn't mean that every experience will be bad. You know, for example, that we do virtual mediumship meetings, right? It does work very well. But we had people saying that does not work. And then I have to make questions. Why is not working for you? Is your home a mess? Because if it is, it will not work. Do you follow the Spiritism proceedings? No, I'm not. So this will not work. So why I'm just talking that kind of thing, going a little bit away from what is our main topic, is to give you the idea that we all have to make questions. We all have to analyze everything from everyone all the time. That's the best way we can ascertain our decisions and our future experiences. Oh dear, I'm talking too much. Well, I will not start the optimistic theory. I'll leave that for next week. Munia, would you like to do a final prayer for us?
Yeah, sure.